Welcome to Toffee TV, joined in the studio by James and Alex from the American Toffee Podcast, all the way across the pond to see us, especially, and watch a couple of Everton games while they're here. Welcome, boys. Lovely to meet you.
Great to have us. Thanks for having us on.
How's the trip going so far?
It's been unbelievable so far. It's coming up on a week now. It feels like it's been a few days, and yet it feels like it's been a lifetime at the same time. So it's been a dream come true in a lot of ways, and couldn't have possibly imagined that we'd be doing half the things that we've been able to do so far. So it's been amazing.
Brilliant. What was Goodison Park like, Alex?
It was amazing. So I've said this before, right? You watch on TV, and I understand you hear that Goodison Park is like a bear pit, right? The seats are so close to the pitch. It creates a great atmosphere. You watch on TV, and the cameras, as you know, are sat pretty high up.
Yeah.
It actually makes it look so much larger. And I actually say that in a good way.
Yeah.
Because you show up, and it actually really, really does feel so much closer, right? I mean, we were just looking at the screens during our tour, and I said, how far away does that look on TV compared to just us sitting or standing in the main stand now and just looking across the way? So it was amazing. It was a whole lot better than I expected, although I'm not sure what I expected.
Yeah, I suppose. It's nothing to how you imagine it, I don't think. And obviously you were denied the perfect ending, weren't you?
Yes.
Tragic.
Oh, damn you, VAR.
VAR, yeah.
VAR, trying to ruin your day. But you also met Tim Howard.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was a complete surprise. So we had arrived in Liverpool Saturday morning, and we had gone on the Legends tour at Goodison. So it was very cool to see it empty and get a tour of, the ins and outs of the changing rooms and all of that stuff. And at the same time that we were doing the tour, we knew that Tim Howard was going to be down at Everton too.
Right,
and so we had hoped originally that we might be able to sneak off and get down there to meet him in the first place. But we had been in touch with Christine from the Fan Engagement Committee, and to her credit, we've said it before, but she deserves all the plaudits because she's been unbelievable to work with. And she emailed and said, I don't think you'll be able to make that time slot. Maybe we can make something else work during the rest of the week. Lo and behold, we were pitchside doing a little piece with the club, chatting with the content team, and then we feel a tap on our shoulder, as I'm sure many have seen the video by now, and we turn around and it's Tim Howard. Absolutely unbelievable to meet him, to shake his hand. He's a big reason of why we follow the club. So it was a surreal moment in a trip that has been filled with them so far.
Let's talk about that then. Obviously, your accents will give away that
not fooling anyone.
Not from anywhere close here. So, Alex, how have you become a American Toffee?
So it was the 2014 World Cup, Tim Howard, right? The heroics against Lukaku's Belgium.
Yeah.
I was taking courses, and so as I had hours and hours of work to do, I just turned on any World Cup match that I could find, quickly got into the sport, and decided I'm going to follow the Secretary of Defense, as they called him.
Yeah.
And so I started to catch a couple Everton matches, and whether it's fortunate or unfortunate enough, I haven't been able to stop.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how the Everton fandom came about.
And what about you?
Yeah,
Tim?
and for me, so it was probably a little bit earlier than Alex. You used to be able to catch the odd European match on American television, but it wasn't widely broadcast or widely popular. But there was one day I turned on an Everton match, and I can't pick out one specific thing that really drew me in at that time. It might have been just I liked the badge, but again, at that time I had no conception of European football, of the different competitions. I knew that there were international teams, and so I started to follow from a distance because it was hard. It's impossible to watch every Premier League match, much less every Everton match.
Yeah.
But then of course, FIFA was a big part of that as well, the video game. I'm sure many Americans would echo that. I started playing, and it was around the time of Joseph Yobo in those days. And,
cool.
And then as I started to follow it more closely, learn about the history, I think that's what really drew me in, was the tremendous history and the ambition of the club to start to compete amongst the top of the Premier League. And I really didn't want to be a glory hunter, so to speak, I think. So choosing Everton was easy, and then as I learned more and more, I truly fell in love with the club. And here we are today.
No one can accuse you of being a glory hunter.
No, yeah,
coming after us in the past 25 years. Yeah. Did you like football? I'm going to call it football.
You can call it football.
You're in our backyard. I'm calling it football. Did you like football prior to that, Alex, or?
So believe it or not, my family, like my parents specifically, they follow essentially no sport.
Oh, okay.
My grandparents followed college American football, right? So That was
The funny shape ball.
Yeah.
Right. So that was part of growing up, but otherwise no sport at all.
Yeah.
It was literally just the 2014 World Cup. I was taking classes
you.
and I said, please, just anything, anything but just physics, right? And so that's kind of how it came about. Yeah.
And what about you, James?
Yeah, I played football growing up, so I had a conception of the game. But the MLS, it really wasn't a big spectator sport in the U.S. I followed, interestingly enough, I followed college basketball very, very closely growing up. The Gonzaga Bulldogs, which I'm sure most of your audience won't know, but they're similar to Everton, where they're a smaller school, but they try to compete amongst the top tier, and so it's a bit of a weird one because they're based across the U.S. But I did follow soccer. I hadn't followed the MLS particularly closely, but as I learned about the Premier League and the history of the league and how closely it was intertwined with the culture, the politics, even the economic side of the country and the history, it struck me as something completely unique and very different from American sports, and I found it incredibly fascinating, so I couldn't get enough.
Awesome. So grew from there.
Yeah.
All of those trophies we've won since you started following will have helped, obviously.
Yeah.
So tell us about this then. How did the American Toffee podcast come about?
So essentially I knew literally no one in real life, personally, that was an Everton fan. No one.
I mean, that's terrible, but go on.
Right. So all of my friends, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, blah, 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 blah. And so I had been following for, I guess, about 4 years at that point. I mean, every single weekend.
Yeah.
And, I was consuming as much content as possible online, but I had no one to share the excitement with or even kind of complain with pretty often. And so I kind of just gauged a little bit of interest on Reddit, the internet site.
Yeah.
And there were about 20 people that were also Americans that said, yeah, I'd be interested in hearing an American's perspective. And so I kind of just started doing it for fun. But you only go so far speaking into a mic by yourself.
Yeah.
And so James kind of reached out and said, hey, I'd love to be your first guest on the show. So I had him on, and he kind of alluded to the fact that he'd like to join me permanently. And although we had never met, even up until literally a week ago, at that point in time, I kind of figured, well, I don't really have a whole lot here, so if he wants to take it, or if I can't trust him, then he can have it. But it's worked out really well, and I can't be happier. So it's just a nice outlet. So essentially, if I could summarize it in one word, it would be selfishness.
Yeah.
Listen, we have to have that cathartic offloading of pain,
Right.
or also, when we have those great days, it's great to share it with. And I mean, this is an interesting dynamic because you didn't know each other.
Correct.
Obviously you knew each other, but you had never met till a
Right.
week ago. But so where are you based? Just for anyone who doesn't know, you are.
So I am in Virginia, and he is in Maine.
Yeah. So I'm based in Maine, northeast, about 2.5 hours north of Boston.
Right, so bit of a
Distance.
distance,
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what have you found by doing that? Has it made those wins even better and those defeats even worse by doing having something to
I mean, certain matches it has definitely been a struggle to record after the fact. You're just so dejected. I mean, most recently, of course, the Newcastle match. That was a tough one, really, to get on the mic. But then, when it goes well, it is really nice to have someone to talk to, and also the amount of people we've tried to start to build kind of a community of people in America, because I think a lot of people feel similarly to how Alex felt, where if anyone around you knows even what the Premier League is or knows anything about European football, they still probably aren't following Everton. They're following the top six, as I always say with inverted commas. But it has been really a great experience, and to have people reach out to us and say, we really appreciate what you guys are doing. We recognize that we enjoy the content, and we appreciate the community that you guys have started to build has been a really rewarding experience.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic, and we do want to grow. I mean, are you the same as Alex? Was there any Evertonians you knew, or were you just on your own as well?
No, I was on my own. I mean, I had friends one of my best friends is a United supporter, so at least he knows about the league and he follows it closely. But to not have anyone to really empathize with the struggles that we go through on a week-to-week basis, the ups and downs, it was nice to connect with someone to be able to have bi-weekly conversations about the Toffees.
So how often do you record then? Is it
We usually twice a week usually, right? We'll do some sort of pre-match or a preview episode and then
Yeah.
a post-match episode. Obviously, sometimes that gets a little bit dodgy on the off season, right?
Yeah.
Or during winter break and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But generally speaking, 2 times a week.
2 times a week, and are you enjoying it?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, I've wanted to make the trip, of course, over here for years and years and years, and never really had the framework or the network to be able to make something like it happen. And I attribute it entirely to the podcast and the amount of connections we've been able to make through Twitter, through the internet, and then to come over and actually meet people face to face and shake their hand. It's been like being welcomed into a family. And having talked to many people all over here, that's how they describe it. It's not just a club; it's truly a family, and we've really felt that since we've been here.
So I guess the aim is to try and grow not only your podcast, but to try and get some Evertonians in both where you live. That's, I don't know whether you're going to go out with leaflets or whatever and become a Blue,
right.
Because obviously, I mean, John's just sat off camera here and we've had this discussion many times that and Ped is a massive advocate of Everton going over to America and doing more. I mean, a country with 320 million people, there must be quite a lot of people who don't know that Evertonians, to quote John, at times they're, like you two. I mean, you especially, Alex, like 6 years.
Right.
6 years ago, you weren't a Blue, and now you are, and doing something like this, and you've made that journey, to come and what's the game? There must be a lot of people who are almost waiting to become Evertonians, and I would suggest there's probably no better time to start getting people involved now, because you've got a world-class manager. We've got some good, exciting young players, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, Mason Holgate, just signed a new deal. We've got a brand new stadium on the horizon,
right.
A lot of positivity. And it's difficult because obviously the other club from this city is doing very well and has a large American presence due to obviously John Henry and FSG and all of that stuff. And they go to America every year now. And this is something that is definitely a bugbear with me and Ped, is that we had Landon Donovan, we had Tim Howard, who you've met. Going further back, we've had Prechy, who's been over there. We've had Morris Johnston,
McBride.
who was Brian McBride, he was great. And that's a real frustration for me, Brian McBride, because he was brilliant for us and we didn't have £500,000 to buy him. And he went to Fulham, and he's great for Fulham for 3 or 4 years. So it annoys me that we could have tied him down. But our links with American players does go back over a long period of time, and really, really annoying that we haven't seized upon that. I remember reading something when we got Landon Donovan, there was 883, I remember the figure, stories every day across America about Landon Donovan and Everton, and it's how did the club not build upon that? So, I mean, obviously listening to your 2 stories, and you're saying there's nobody for me to talk to who's an Evertonian, given how big, both states are, I suppose, is that how can Everton increase that presence? I know Everton have set up Everton in the USA, and they've had a couple of these NBC days, haven't they? And Tim Howard's gone along to one of them, and Liam Osman's gone over. We've seen that before, and Paul Rideout, who's obviously the last player to score a winning goal that won us a trophy, is based out in America, and he's there as well. So, in your views, how do you?
I think it comes down to this is a huge gripe for us all the time.
Okay.
But I think it comes down to, the rumors were that the club were going to come to DC last summer, right? Rooney was there. It felt like it was literally just made to be. All you have to do is book the tickets. We both agreed we'd actually meet for the first time there if that happened, and it never came to be, right? And it's been quite a few years since Everton came to the United States for a preseason tour before I started following them.
2013 it was.
Right, yeah. So I think that would be a great first step, right? Just bring the club to the States. These Premier League in the USA events, he went to the one in which he was able to actually get a picture with Leon Osman, right?
Yeah.
But that was in Boston, right? They're having one coming up in Philadelphia, in which Tim Howard will be going to. But those are just the major cities.
Yeah.
And actually, why don't you expand upon what your experience was even at that event in terms of the number of Everton fans compared to a bunch of other fans just in dress?
Yeah, that event was unbelievable to me, just to see. You would see all 20 Premier League clubs represented, kits from everywhere.
Yeah.
And someone made a comment when we were talking about that over here, said you could never do something like that, in England, because there'd be fights left and right and all of that. It's not the same level maybe of I guess you don't have that ingrained in you.
No.
But I do think that those NBC and has done a good job of sort of marketing the league, and I will say that soccer is the, I think, fastest growing spectator sport in the U.S. I think that within the next 15 or 20 years, it could be the second most popular in the country, especially for youth players. As American football, the long-term negative health effects of that sport, I think more parents are going to push their kids towards soccer. Yeah. So, and then you have, of course, the Premier League, I think, is the best football product in the world, and it's very marketable. And then a club like Everton, who, as you said, are well poised to sort of a very bright next 5-10 years as we move into the new stadium, as these things start to happen. It just amounts to the club having a presence in the U.S. and making sure to try to build out that network and making efforts. And I think they've started to do that. Like you said, I think Tim Howard was a huge missed opportunity. But to be fair to the club at the time, maybe they didn't have the resources or the focus to necessarily be prioritizing foreign markets. Now that we're in a financially secure position, I think they can do a lot more with expanding on what's being done by the NBC and all of those places to grow the club. And I think Everton have a very strong brand with the history, with the American connections, as you said. It's about communicating that outwards. And then, I mean, the best thing that they can do is win a trophy, of course. That's what will, really bring. But beyond that, I do think that there's marketing efforts that can be made, because I think the brand of Everton is an extremely strong one, and one that's extremely appealing to Americans for a lot of ways. I think sports fandom in the United States isn't as geographically tied as it might be over here. You've got fans on the East Coast that will root for the LA Dodgers, for example, because it's not nearly as common to go to the match week in, week out, because most fans have been priced out in the US because it's become so commercialized. So a lot of fans consume sport through the television, and so with the Premier League being now very accessible through television in the US, I think that if fans can understand the history of Everton, the way that we're going, and if we can get some players who draw the eye, like we have with Richarlison, I think there will be people who are drawn in and then won't be able to get away.
To nail them that. Well, what was, when you went to that NBC event, was there a lot of Evertonians?
Yeah, no, there were for sure. I
mean,
certainly drowned out being in Boston, where Fenway Sports Group obviously owns the other side of the park. But there were a lot of Evertonians, and it was very cool to see how many there were and to meet them. And watching the match, I believe we played West Ham that day and we won 2-0. So that was a very cool to see. And then having Leon there, the Everton fans, and just being over here, as soon as you meet a Blue, they're probably pretty sound. So it was very cool. And yeah, just unlike anything I had ever experienced, to see all of the fans of the sport come together. And I got there at probably 6:30 a.m. and waited in line for probably 2.5 hours to get into the pub to watch the match, because the demand, like I said, it's growing very fast, and it's growing among the younger demographics especially. Excellent. And they'll be fans for life. Once it's touched you, nothing will be the same. So
that's exactly it.
He wrote that down before coming.
Yeah. On his arm, just there. Yeah. You're talking about going out there, and that's the best thing Everton can do, and it's absolutely right. And me and Pat have had this discussion. You can go and find these videos all over the place, because I think every 3 or 4 months we do why aren't we doing something in America video? And one of the things we thought was that if the club goes out to chooses somewhere, Georgia, somewhere, whatever, go out there, but take Everton and take the ladies team with them, and take maybe the 23s with them, and do like a week in a one of the states, and play games for those three, and do like a couple of coaching surgeries, as they're called, get involved. That's the way, because I know Liverpool do stuff like that, and that's the way to really draw people in, people who might just like football / soccer, as you call it, and are just interested in the kids. Imagine them going, and Richarlison's there and people like that. That's the way you hook those people in, and it's a big, it's a huge country where you can, there's so much potential for growth there. I mean, is that something that you think could work, something like that? So
the market share has not even been close to tapped in terms of how many people that I feel, we've had this discussion many times, how many people that can become fans of a Premier League team, let alone Everton, right? The thing is, it comes down to Everton need a little bit more success. I say that because we now have the access. I understand Sky Sports is quite expensive here. We pay $50 for an entire season to watch all Premier League matches on NBCSN, right? the access
for
the entire season. The access is unbelievable. The access is unbelievable, right? But I'd also like to think that, not the majority of people that may not be either A, soccer fans, or B, Premier League fans are not going to turn on a random match and decide to choose whatever the 10th place team to follow, right? Most people, most human beings are not going to do that. So it comes down to success. But getting the team in person, all of it, right? The first team, the women's team, the U23s in person is important. It's a great marketing opportunity for the MLS clubs that are there. The MLS clubs will be like, yes, please tell us the date. We'll bend to your schedule. I'm not kidding. Furthermore, the quality of play that spectators in the States can see if Everton were to come, even the U23s, the women, that would be another very important factor in being able to pick up fans, right? It might not make sense, like obviously, okay, they'll show up in person and then they might get some fans, but really the underlying factor is you compare that to what you can watch in the States in person, at least on a regular basis, and it is nowhere near the level. And so you now have a premium product sat here, possibly playing against your favorite MLS team that is going to welcome you with open arms. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
100%.
Yeah.
No, but absolutely. I mean, I've gone and watched Orlando City, play Philadelphia Union, play Atlanta United.
Yes.
I enjoy it. I love MLS. I'm not, I love football, but I love MLS because it's berserk at times.
It is.
Goals and madness. I'm seeing obviously the interest grow. Beckham's team now into Miami have just started. Nashville.
And look what City have done with NYCFC.
City, exactly.
Right?
So there's a lot of that is growing. That's without a shadow of a doubt. And you're right. If you're into soccer and you're watching an MLS club, why not have a Premier League club as well?
Correct.
If that Premier League club, I mean, I'd love Everton to go to Orlando and play, and me and Ped would be straight over there
you
to
just
watch
like Orlando.
that. Yeah, I love Orlando, but I understand that places like Georgia, anywhere go choose somewhere and go, we're gonna have this state, we're gonna put our brand across. And if you're a fan of soccer and this Premier League clubs, then there's this week of events going on where maybe the first team will play a friendly on a Tuesday against Atlanta United, like say for argument's sake, and then the women's will play Atlanta team, and the under 23s will play either Atlanta's or the state side or whatever, and you can go and watch it. Seeing those players in person gives you that link immediately, then doesn't it? You're tied towards that. Where are these? Everton, right? I'll have a look out for them when they go back, and we may get people like yourself, Alex, who go, like, they're my club.
Correct.
And I'm watching them the same,
And the other thing with the Premier League as a whole, and not necessarily Everton specific, is the time difference makes the games air on weekend mornings. So you can wake up at sometimes as early as 7:30. If you're on the shout out to the West Coast Blues in the U.S. because they wake up 4:30 a.m. sometimes. But you wake up 7:30, 8:30, 9:30. You watch the match. It's noon. You still have the rest of your day. Whereas if it's a primetime sporting event in the U.S., you're thinking 8. That's your whole evening gone.
Yeah.
It's a very appealing sporting event. I love waking up on the weekend. It's my favorite thing in the world to wake up and watch the match. So I just think that the sky is the limit with the parameters that are currently in place for the Premier League in the U.S.
Everton, just listen to the lads are telling you it's there. So what have you got on then for the rest of your time over here? You're here till
tomorrow. So
in England, UK.
Right. So tomorrow we're going to go down to London.
Yeah.
We figured we can't just come for one match, hence we're going to go to Chelsea away.
Cool.
And so honestly, we're going to go to London and figure it out. We're gonna do all of the tourist stuff, right?
Yeah,
Most of our trip in Liverpool has been Everton centric.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to be just straight up essentially tourists at that point. But nonetheless, Chelsea away.
Yeah, that's going to be so we're going to Finch Farm right after this, and then we'll be headed off to London tomorrow morning. Maybe try to catch a match on Saturday, and then, of course, the match at Chelsea on Sunday. Hopefully we can break the losing streak away at Stamford Bridge.
25 years. It's actually 26 years this year if we don't win. So hopefully you two are the lucky charm. I mean, since the lads have been on Merseyside, Liverpool have lost 3-0 and 2-0.
Yeah.
So just saying.
The weather's been fantastic.
And the weather's been decent. Well, I mean, fantastic's not the right word, but better than what it was compared to what it was last week. So cue with Liverpool 0 Bournemouth 1 at Anfield at the weekend, and then that's it. I don't think anyone will be letting you go home.
We'll
with that.
start a GoFundMe page.
To stay here, yeah. Listen, lovely to meet you. Enjoy
Yes.
enjoy the
Thank you
Finch
so
Farm.
much.
Enjoy the Finch Farm
for having
trip.
us.
Enjoy
Yeah.
the rest of your stay here. Keep fighting the good fight.
We will.
Keep abroad, back home,
Yeah.
and keep spreading Everton's word.
We will.
Will do.
Come on, we can do it, lads.
We got it. Come on,
Let's
you.
get Everton into the USA.
Up the
I'm
Toffees.
sure we'll see the lads on this channel again, most definitely, with Skypes and
Yeah.
and all of that kind of thing.
Love to
So
do it.
thanks very much. Make sure you check out the American Toffee Podcast. Where can people find it, boys?
Pretty much everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, YouTube even. Although we don't do a whole video, right? It's just a still, but nonetheless, pretty much every major platform.
Yep, and find us on Twitter at USA Toffee Pod. Find us on Instagram under the same handle, and join our Discord too. You can find the links to that. We've started to build a little network chat room for Toffees to chat. So if you're interested, please join, and we'd love to chat with you.
Do it. Do all of that. Get behind the lads. Listen to the American Toffee Podcast. Thanks very much for watching. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. And if you want more videos, join us over on Patreon. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.